Mr. Telitska.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for making the effort. It is a matter of fact that there are two schools of looking at the agreement that is yet to be signed. One is that agreement gradually should lead to certain changes in Cuba. The second school is doubtful. Now, I leave aside which of the two schools is right, but when I read for the first time the draft agreement, and I didn't expect too much, I must say that I was shocked. I was still, before the membership times, a member of the delegation for the first negotiations of the first agreement between the European Community and Czechoslovakia, and then I led the negotiations on the accession. I must say that at that time, after November '89, we had a much tougher stance from the Union at a time when it was unclear that we would become one day a member of the European Union. Then, at this time, the EU had vis-à-vis Cuba in the framework of this agreement. Now, what is striking about the agreement is, and I could imagine that it would be somehow balanced, but there is not a single commitment for Cuba in the area of human rights. There is not a single commitment. All the provisions are drafted in a sort of a bilateral, mutual language, and it does even give an impression that we are to sort of join forces on human rights vis-à-vis third countries, vis-à-vis the outside world. For me, this is quite astonishing and extremely disappointing. Now, that's one remark which I wanted to make. The second remark, just to highlight what kind of dialogue Cuba is ready to have with us. I was to lead as vice chair of the ALDE group a delegation for talks in Cuba. Now, repeatedly, and my colleague José was to be one of the other members, repeatedly we were clearly signaled we are not welcome. Why? Because for the last 8 years, even before, or 10 years before joining the European Parliament, I and my colleagues have been active on Cuban rights issues. That's the reason. So this is the quality of the political dialogue that we are having today. Third is not a question, it's rather a remark, because unfortunately I will have to leave for other commitments, so do accept my apology. But the third remark is related to a meeting that with two other colleagues we had with the top ranking officials of the External Action Service, plus the ambassador. And what we were told is there is no opposition in Cuba. These are human rights defenders. Now, again, I leave the evaluation aside, but I think that that is something that maybe you, not just you, but I've met a lot of your colleagues in different formats, and sometimes we receive different delegations of Cuban dissidents and human rights defenders and so on. And the fact is that what, even through lenses of someone that is a friend of the Cuban democratic opposition, we don't see the unity that we would need to have from your side, not just as human rights defenders, but as opposition political leaders. In order to establish a framework for your dialogue with the authorities, we really need that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.